Immediate will. Yeah, thanks. First of all, I didn't prepare anything, so I just came in this morning. I flew in from holiday last night with an absolute. My wife forbade me to do anything PC related, and she grabbed hold of the cell phone, so I couldn't prepare anything. So I'd like just to share some ideas and some thoughts, and maybe we could go into some discussion and see some of your insights on this topic. I talked already with a few people, and it looks as if a lot of you are thinking about the same things I am. I saw a lot of talk today about blogs and about social software and stuff like that. And I'm constantly thinking, because today I work for an enterprise, and the enterprise pays me to play around with technology that benefits them. How do these concepts translate into a business context? One of the main things, for example, is when you're talking about blogs or tagging or social networks, implicitly you're assuming that people who are using those are investing time and effort and resources of themselves into this because they like it or because they want to share with others. And when I try to translate this into a company, you will come in contact with a lot of users that are not as willing to do this out of themselves, but they need tools or systems that just support them in their daily day-to-day business, and automatically do some of the things that we in the community or US bloggers do actively. So, for example, if I'm sharing information with my colleague, for example, he asked me a question about some kind of project, and I respond with a few documents or a PowerPoint presentation or an Excel sheet. It would be nice if there were some system that detected the relevance of that information and had people interested in that information as well proactively. So rather than me having to tag every PowerPoint presentation that comes into my mailbox and say this is on
mobile communications, and this is on internet, and this is on blogging. I'm just thinking, and this is thinking out loud, in a business you need tools that try to detect knowledge or information more in an automatic sense actively. But if I'm constantly exchanging email conversations with the same person on the same subject, maybe again system might deduce from that this person might be relevant in that role, and other people that share the same topic might want to contact that person as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah. There was another workshop Ian was giving that one.
On the signaling?
Yeah. So there was kind of about the same. Well, his approach was like, if you want something like this, then first of all you have to change corporate culture, because if they don't want to share, then you're screwed. So you want to go around the back door, like you have to share. Like we don't give you the option to opt out.
Maybe not. Because, for example, the company where I work for Columbus, has this culture of sharing that. The problem is today, information is in your head and in your head and in your head, and you have to actively dig it out, note it down, maybe put it in some presentation. And if I ask you your information, you'll send it to me, but you're not aware of what I've sent. Yeah. And maybe I'll add 3 or 4 slides to this and present it to the customer, and you don't know what I've changed, and this information is lost. And if I tomorrow decide to leave the company,
but
everything is gone.
Isn't that then really about like telling people, so instead of writing an email to that person, write it on the website and send the URL to that person, or like make something like a wiki where you keep track of changes to a certain project or changes about certain information, and link there when you send the email.
Wikis is something that we're looking into for the moment, but then a wiki is still limited in the fact that it doesn't allow me to take this information and put it into a presentation form, for example. I always think I have this content and I need to put it to a customer. It's also limited in the fact that if I want to share something, I have to put it in the wiki. If there's maybe a bookmark that I find interesting and I add to my bookmarks, let's notify everyone on my team that I've added this bookmark, or just put it automatically on some internal portal. I also find
This is an interesting thought. I mean, notify everyone. So, I mean, what I experience in companies is that people really have a problem with the information overload that they're facing. I mean, it's like, especially in the creative sector, which means engineering, which means software development. People that don't do the same thing every day again and again, but like get information and have to process information and use their skills to come up with new ideas and stuff. They sort of are just they face this massive flow of stuff. So what you really need is to give them back the control of the things. So one way is like, okay, but that's not your remark is good to push the information to them, but rather come to a culture that they can pull what they need. And there's some intelligent ideas around how to sort of be fussy in that thing. It's not just what they want, but give them some hints, right? Rather than really, okay, you have to go, I decide what you're gonna read. That's not going to work.
I think the layer of the social network has to be put on top of this, because today, well, we are in departments within the company. I do, for example, Java, and you only do .NET. But maybe as a .NET developer, I might be interested in what's happening in the Java community as well. My colleague might not, but I might. And so if, again, the system detects the fact that I tend to read Java articles, maybe it should push some of the Java information to me as well. Social layer on top of it.
Well, I think it's interesting to look at these building blocks. I also see as two major building blocks you need the security, which will be very important. And so I would say we are actually publishing, we want to publish information. It's like the RSS model. We want to publish information and we want to make information available for aggregation. So, and there can be some intelligence, not in the first step, maybe in the second step, to optimize this aggregation system. So maybe you can start simply by saying, okay, we just publish all information, and to begin with you can just subscribe to lists. I also think there are two major types of information that we may be interested in. On one side we may have really project-specific information, and on the other hand there's the knowledge management information. I saw an interesting presentation that mentioned social software for enterprises. I don't know the name now. That really allows me to, well, me too, I work in a large international enterprise, and let's say, to give a cliché example, I have a problem with an Excel formula. Instead of going to Google, which would be the normal thing to do for me, I would probably still do it, and ask the question, I should be able, in my company, to go to a corporate Excel forum and ask this question, so that everybody in the company that is
interested or knowledgeable about this subject can be addressed. In normal companies, not in mine at least, this information is really not available. So also to know what is the knowledge, what are the tags that people are interested in, and so to increase and allow communication on that level, I think that would be an added value as well.
Your colleagues use RSS, are they familiar with the concept?
Some of them are, yeah. Make sure I'm not looking for a solution for a company or our company and just trying to get some random thoughts on how can we translate things that are happening on the internet today into a business context. Because we are using RSS, but I'm not aware of the feeds that my colleague, who's in the same domain as I am, is using. Only because he tells me, not because we have some social interaction, or there's no network or tools that allow me to share this information and quickly look at what is my colleague looking at.
Boris Mann was like, there was yet another workshop with Boris Mann, and that was also going that direction. But that was more about general identity.
It was often more about people, and I'm looking more to information and
business.
Important thing is as well, a lot of people, before you start sharing information, you have to capture it. And often people tend to go to taxonomies and just search in keywords, and then this will indicate the relevance of the information. I'm thinking, couldn't the system, for example, like Decode.com today, in an enterprise context, proved to be useful to determine the relevance of information based on expertise of the people in the corporation.
There is a system like that. I mean, I think Microsoft is bringing this in with
SharePoint.
Is it SharePoint 2007?
Yeah.
They do there's another system that I know that is already in use in certain companies. What they basically do, they track all your traffic. They track your emails, they track your documents, and they do a they have some kind of similarity thing going on, and so they can actually profile your data, information that you use and absorb every day, with the information that anyone else does. And so you can connect, you actually can see, okay, who's doing similar things in the corporation. So you get a first glimpse of that. And this is actually working. I mean, it's from a legal point of view, it gets dodgy, because you really have to look into every email and into every document. As far as I know, in Germany, America seems to be easier on that. And in Germany, they had to put a control on the client, so that the people actually, they can decide whether this email is going into that system and this email is not. So, but that worked, and then they got it through all the
problem with trying to emulate systems or phenomena that work on the web, on the public internet in a corporation, is that the scale is simply not big enough to have, let's say, a site like Dig or Delicious. If only 2 people are digging a link, what's the relevance of it? It only works when lots of people are doing it.
We have an internal Dig at our company. So I work for 6 Apart. We make blogging software and stuff. And we have an internal Dig service. And even though if only 2 people dig a link, most of what appears there is still relevant to the whole company, because we're all interested in blogs, obviously. So all the industry news comes through there.
I think also.
But maybe not on very specific topics like the developers or
explicit either, because the example I gave earlier in a conversation with, I think it was with Ian, is, let's say I'm working on an RFP for a customer, which is a hypothetical example about outsourcing, and I need a reference. So what I do is I go to the internal portal, I look for reference outsourcing, and I get a few hits on the internal website, and I click the second one. And the system might decide, well, if I'm using this reference for outsourcing, this document might be relevant, and I'll page ranking, I'll push it up the rankings. Especially if I'm someone who's knowledgeable in the domain. If I'm one of the consultants working on outsourcing, the next time a salesperson who's not that knowledgeable wants a reference, the system could say, well, Koen, who's very knowledgeable, downloaded this one. Maybe you should use that one as well. And in the meanwhile, know that the people who are working within the company on outsourcing are also looking at topics such as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that would also allow our salesperson, for example, to tell a more elaborate story to the customer, because he can look into those different subjects and tell more to the customer before he has to take one of the experts with him. That's one of the problems, for example, we face today, is sales relies heavily on experts, rather than building up the knowledge themselves, because they can't find the knowledge or they don't know what's relevant in the context of, in this case, outsourcing. So if we could feed them, the experts in this domain are using this and this and this as well, please read, or they will tend to read it, and they will have to rely less on the experts in the company itself. The knowledge gets richer, let's say.
The ideal system would indeed be like this. Every action that people do now already, that the implicit information that is in that action, that is being captured and that's being used for the system. Like, for example, indeed scanning the contents of your email, not only the contents of your email, but who you email with, who are your partners, what's your network within the company. The problem is that I think that people don't trust it, and people are not always willing to give up the value that's in their heads, because they're valuable for a company because of their experience and relationships they have. I mean, you have a lot of salespeople who have their private address books because they don't want to give up those address books to the company. So that's the reason why it might not work, that people don't trust it. And again, scale, for example, PageRank is something that only works when you have huge statistical, data to work with. If you want to go, if you want to work with really simple tools, I mean, I've organized a seminar on guerrilla knowledge management in companies on RSS wikis and logging tools. First of all, it's not going to work if the culture is not there, if people don't trust each other. How do you get such a sharing culture? I don't know. I mean, lots of gurus who've written on it. So there's one thing you have to make sure. You have to coach people. The traditional way of doing so is to establish communities of practice. So not departmental things, but like you have themes like a community of practice on sales, a community of practice on specific technology, where experts meet each other in an informal way. It is in the interest of each of those experts to exchange their knowledge, because it will make them more valuable within their own department if they share knowledge with their peers in other departments. That's a process you have to coach. There are also tools for that. You can give people, I don't know, you have IBM, forgotten names, all kinds of collaboration tools, like really simple things, you are in groups or MSN groups, and then you have quick place. Yeah, lots of things. So that's one thing. And another really simple set of tools is, first of all, RSSify as much of, as much as possible of the information you have. I mean, it should be possible, for example, like public quick place information that people can subscribe to it. You have wikis that are really interesting tools to be used within a project. So people coming together again from different departments, they work with knowledge, with information that's really volatile, transient information. Wikis are really good to use that, and wikis always give you the current state of affairs. You don't have to flow through lots of old, outdated information.
That's the problem with our corporate wikis. Sometimes that information does get stale, like how to set up a development
server. So you need a wiki gardener. So if you have a community of practice or a project group, there has to be a kind of secretary, a wiki gardener who eliminates like old information.
Yeah, the problem is it's not immediately obvious from looking at it that it's old information or not.
Yeah, but then the gardener can be from this actual field. I mean, we just start an international wiki in a very more traditional company, 25,000 people, they're market leader in their field, but they're really they do metal stuff, right? So they're traditional, and we try to implement for each section a gardener that's from the actual community of practice that is sort of putting their ideas into. And we identify a couple of use cases for the first phase, that for example we have events like presentations, there's regular sessions, and they're documented in the wiki. So there's content that is quite stable and it just doesn't grow. We have what's pretty much interesting is the looking at competitors, for example. And some other use cases, and they're pretty okay. Everyone can understand the border, what it is, what not is. So there's sections that grow pretty cool and keep information, what's not information. And it's going to be interesting to see, where sections start to grow. And after a couple of weeks,
these sections started to spread out, so that everyone has access to it. So suddenly there are sections and where you actually need to have someone to just identify the section and see, okay, well, who's responsible for it, and then try to attach the name.
Okay, I wanted to mention the third component that's still there's blogging, and that's a lot less obvious. I mean, wikis are really easy to implement, and it's really easy to convince people of usefulness of blogging. I mean, when I tried to research on blogging within companies, I mean, I remember mailing Maarten, but I mean, yet there are of course corporate blogs that have a marketing function, but blogging is not really accepted yet as a knowledge management tool. Whereas wikis are content focused, so you have a theme or a project around which you build a wiki. Blogs are author focused. So I think it only will work in large enough companies where, well, if you meet people on the water cooler, the most important knowledge management instruments companies have, then it's not really necessary to have internal blogs. But when you have large-scale company, for example, with a multinational company like yours, then it could be interesting that people establish their reputation as expert within a certain field by blogging on new developments in a certain field. That's one thing, that people market their own expertise. It's the drive at the same moment, so they're proving their internal value in the company and marketing their own expertise within the company. And the second application of blogging is again project blogs, whereas the wiki is current state of affairs. The blog is, well, the log of the project. So what has happened at a